The Chevrolet Corvette is a sports car staple, serving as one of the United States' most recognizable homegrown exotic marques for over 70 years. As a non-American, the Corvette is one of the most American things I can think of after bald eagles and the word aluminum. And despite America's reputation for sports cars that may leave a lot to be desired handling-wise, fair or not, the C5R shut that descent right down, proving itself as one of the most formidable machines ever to compete in GT class racing, even in spite of some occasional setbacks. While modern Corvettes have an image tethered strongly to motorsport, this wasn't so much the case through the car's earlier iterations. Now that's not to say that Corvettes weren't raced. They very much were, with a modified C1 claiming a record at the Flying Mile, Briggs Cunningham's famous Corvette Le Mans entries, the C2 Grand Sport laying waste to small championships and being banned by the SCCA, and the C4 acting as a base for a Callaway Le Mans effort. I'm certain there's more examples too, but none of these efforts had Chevrolet's explicit involvement or support. It was the passion of privateers that built the racing side of the Corvette story. Chevrolet had provided factory support to an IMSA GTP campaign, with a car bearing the Corvette name, but the relationship was barely even skin deep, as the car bore no mechanical resemblance to the road car, and very little visual resemblance too. Cool as it wasn't really a Corvette. After years of resistance to getting involved, General Motors finally decided the time had come to unleash the Corvette's full fury for the world to see and fear. This program continues after a short ad break. You ever sat at home, looking outside at the lovely warm weather and wishing you were out fishing? Well, have I got the game for you. Fishing Clash. Fishing Clash is a free-to-play mobile game where you can kick back and reel in the catch of the day from the comfort of your couch. Choose the lure best suited to the fish you want to catch, cast your line and wrestle your catch back to shore. Upgrade your rods and lures, level up your licenses, and unlock new fisheries all over the world to catch new and exotic fish. Fishing Clash is an official sponsor of Major League Fishing and is available to download right now on iOS and Android. Support the channel by going to the link in the description or by going to the QR code on screen now. You can also use the code automobilistic in-game to get $20 of bonus rewards. Click on the blue icon in the top right, tap gift codes, and type in automobilistic to get a unique avatar, a mythical lure card, that's really good, as well as weight and luck power-ups. Thanks to Fishing Clash for sponsoring this video, and now back to the story of the Corvette C5R. The 5th generation Corvette would be a major departure from the Corvettes of the past. New manufacturing and design techniques allowed the C5 to gain rigidity compared to its predecessor and a near 50-50 weight distribution, real sports car stuff. While in absolute terms the car was not lighter than the C4, it was designed to handle the mass much more effectively, helped by the transmission being integrated into a rear transaxle. The engine too was new, with the C5 featuring the aluminium, I'm sure there's already arguments in the comments section about that word after the intro, aluminium LS1 small block V8 producing around 345 horsepower at launch, and of course shuffling all of it to the rear wheels through either a 6-speed manual gearbox or a good old 4-speed automatic. The launch of the C5 was supposed to line up with the 40th anniversary of the launch of the original Corvette in 1993, but for a myriad of reasons, mostly stemming from money trouble, that didn't end up happening. Instead, it arrived at the Detroit Auto Show in 1997. The changes that had been made to the way the C5 was built meant that more so than any Corvette that had come before it, the platform had strong competitive potential. Of course, a lot would be reworked, but a strong base will only ever increase the chances that the end product is good. Chevrolet were not exactly going to be treading new ground when it came to fielding the most American possible GT cars, as Chrysler, in partnership with French chassis constructor Oreca, had already built and raced the monstrous Viper GT SR in both European and American GT class events from 1996. By the time the Corvette would be ready to race, the Viper had secured its place as a GT legend. A story I've told before. Chevrolet needed to beat them. Unlike the Corvette IMSA GTP car of the 80s, the C5R was meant to be much more closely related to its road-going counterpart, bringing it in line with the rules for GT class racing in both the US and Europe. GT had seen a surge in popularity through the mid-90s, in no small part due to the collapse of Group C and GTP prototype racing, which left a hole at the top of the endurance racing hierarchy that GT cars slotted neatly into. Chevrolet partnered with Pratt & Miller to build the cars, keeping the construction America-based, unlike Chrysler's move to Europe to develop the Viper. While very clearly not stock, the C5R didn't appear on the surface to be a million miles away from the car on display at your local Chevrolet dealer, and the hope was that if they could achieve racing success, it would not only advertise the Corvette directly, but build a mythos around the car to elevate its desirability to enthusiasts. Or to put it another way, what wins on Sunday sells on Monday, or so they say. It wasn't just the body that looked similar to the road car. The engine was initially a modified LS1, bored out to 6 litres by Kartek. The C5R was ready to compete by 1999, a little late in the day compared to many of their competitors, but expectations were high nonetheless. The C5R made its racing debut at the opening round of the short-lived United States Road Racing Championship in 1999. 2 cars were entered into the GT2 class by the newly formed Corvette Racing, a fully fledged factory effort managed mostly by Pratt & Miller. Their competition in the class was the powerhouse racing force of the Porsche 911 GT2 and the Corvette's spiritual sibling, the Viper GTSR. On debut at the Daytona 24 Hours, Corvette Racing managed to score 3rd in the GT2 class, losing out to Porsche, but establishing themselves as an instant threat to the status quo. The C5R also contested a handful of rounds of the American Le Mans Series, or ALMS, where it was certainly competitive, claiming a pair of second-place finishes in the GTS class standings, but the team hadn't been able to convert the strong start into any event wins, at least not yet. Corvette Racing weren't really contesting the championship, skipping too many races to make a real impact so that they could improve the car ahead of the new millennium. During the 1999 season, the 6-litre LS1-based engine had been more extensively reworked by Kartek to create a new 7-litre engine capable of generating just over 600 horsepower and a huge 770 Nm of torque. The new engine retained some elements of the LS1, but the relationship had grown distant in pursuit of better racing performance. The cars built for 2000 also had some further changes made, the most drastic of which being a chassis overhaul to widen the car and increase cornering stability. In 2000, Corvette Racing would once again return to the Daytona 24 Hours, which was the opening round of the newly renamed Grand American Road Racing Championship, or Grand Am. Like the previous year, their primary competition would be Porsche and Dodge, and the race was a close one. The number 3 Corvette of Chris Neifel, Ron Fellows and Justin Bell was locked into a close battle with Team Orica's number 91 Viper. Despite the Corvette exhibiting superior single-lap pace, achieving the fastest lap in the GTO class, the Viper pipped them to the post, finishing just 31 seconds ahead of the Corvette after a grueling 723 laps. This would set the scene for the start of the 2000 ALMS season at Sebring, where once again the Corvettes were beaten by the mighty Viper. The C5R made its Le Mans debut in 2000, running in the LMGTS category, where, just like anywhere else they were going to race, the Viper GTSR was the machine to beat. Despite Lister managing a surprise win in the FIA GT Championship that Corvette weren't contesting, Corvette Racing performed very well for debutantes, but still lost to Viper Team Orica, with the fastest of the Corvettes finishing 6 laps behind the lead Viper. Back in North America, and the Viper bested the Corvette yet again at Mosport. This wouldn't be an easy fight for the Corvettes after all. The Viper's streak wouldn't last though, as the C5R claimed its first class victory at the Texas Motor Speedway. It would prove to be the first of many. The next race the Corvettes contested was the Petit Le Mans at Road Atlanta, where once again the C5R managed to beat the Viper, with Corvette Racing car number 4 finishing just 7 seconds ahead of the second place Viper after 358 laps. The winning drivers were Frank Freyon, Andy Pilgrim and Kelly Collins. The second Corvette closed out the podium. The Viper reasserted itself at Laguna Seca and Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and Corvette Racing chose not to contest the final round in Australia. Viper Team Orica handily won the GTS class of that year's ALMS, but Corvette Racing was yet to contest a full season, and had shown flashes of insurmountable pace at times. Surely it was destined for championship success, they just had to beat that damn Viper. If the Lister Storm had managed it, the Corvette could too. Not much changed for Corvette Racing heading into 2001, but the same cannot be said for their biggest rival. Chrysler officially ended support for the Viper GTSR racing program, with Chrysler and Orica choosing instead to focus on a joint LMP project, leaving all future Viper outings in the hands of privateer efforts. Without factory support, the Viper was weakened, and the C5R, having been on an upward trajectory, was perfectly positioned to take advantage. Corvette Racing started 2001 off strong, winning the Daytona 24 Hours outright 6 laps ahead of second place. The second Corvette, despite finishing off the podium in 4th place, is worth mentioning due to its driver lineup, which included NASCAR legend Dale Earnhardt and his son Dale Jr. This was just a couple of weeks before Dale Earnhardt's tragic death at the same track. At round 1 of ALMS, Corvette Racing won again in the GTS class before losing round 2 at Sebring to a Saleen S7R, the coolest possible car to lose to. They didn't contest the European Le Mans Series, 2 races of which overlapped as rounds 3 and 4 of the ALMS, though they did race at Le Mans, where they managed to finish 8th overall and claim class victory in LMGTS, despite having been outqualified by the Saleen S7R. While the victory was in a relatively sparsely populated class, the fact Corvette finished ahead of LMGT and LMP cars demonstrated that its pace wasn't just relative. Returning to ALMS from round 5, they claimed class victory in the next 4 rounds in a row, cementing the C5R as the new American GT car king, fending off the S7 for a while. Saleen won the penultimate round at Laguna Seca before Corvette Racing rounded out the year with their 6th win of the season at the Petit Le Mans, decisively winning the GTS Teams Championship ahead of Conrad Team Saleen. It had taken a couple of years, but 2001 was the year the C5R wrote itself into the history books, and it showed no sign of yielding anytime soon. For 2002, the ALMS expanded in the wake of its European counterpart folding, meaning that all 10 rounds took place in North America. This was perfect for the travel-shy Corvette Racing, who would contest every round for the first time. It was a bloodbath. C5Rs won all but one race in 2002, regularly finishing ahead of some of the top-class LMP 900 cars too, on merit. The only fly in the ointment was round 8 at Laguna Seca, where Corvette number 3 suffered a fire just over an hour into the race, before the second car ran out of fuel, claiming a qualified finish of 3rd place in the GTS class, losing to Saleen in 2nd, and a new force in the form of the ProDrive Ferrari 550 Maranello, which took victory. Despite the small upset, it was a totally dominant season for Corvette Racing, who won the GTS Championship more than 70 points ahead of Conrad Saleen, taking the title for the 2nd year in a row. They had won in LMGTS2 at Le Mans, and like the ALMS, the C5R had found itself ahead of serious LMP cars too, ending the race 11th overall, not being beaten by a single one of the theoretically faster LMP 675 cars. The 2003 season started much like 2002, with the C5R cruising to win after win in the ALMS, taking victory at the first 5 races of the season. But through those 5 races, ProDrive's Ferrari 550 was getting closer and closer, eventually ending the Corvette's win streak in round 6 at the Road America 500. Unlike the previous year, where Corvette's only loss had been due to mishaps, ProDrive's victory at Road America was on merit, finishing just half a second ahead of the lead C5R and claiming a faster fastest lap time too. To the shock of Corvette Racing, and presumably everyone watching as well, the 550 Maranello went on to win all 3 of the remaining races that year. not helped by an accident for Corvette number 4 just before Miami. ProDrive had really given Corvette racing a proper run for their money. Corvette won the championship, their 3rd in a row, but the gap to ProDrive was only 6 points by the end of the season. The C5R wasn't the unbeatable force it had once appeared to be. To add salt to the wound, this same story played out at Le Mans, with the ProDrive Ferrari out-qualifying the Corvette, then winning the GTS class a worrying 10 laps ahead of Corvette's best effort. Was the C5R losing its place? Despite coming within just a few points of beating the Corvette in ALMS in 2003, ProDrive chose not to contest the championship again in 2004. While the C5R had to fight for its place against the Ferrari, no other competitor had yet come anywhere near as close to dethroning it. The first 3 rounds were exactly as expected, easy wins for Corvette, who, as had become customary, were able to finish ahead of even LMP cars. Round 3 at Sonoma Raceway was slightly different though. The team was running a 3rd car that would be driven by Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Boris Said. According to Earnhardt, the team had needed to replace the fuel system the night before the race, and the following morning during the warm-up, just a couple of hours before lights out, Earnhardt had a minor accident, bumping the rear of the car off the tyre barrier before coming to a rest at the edge of the track on the S's. But then the car burst into flames. The whole car seemed to erupt at once. Earnhardt was able to climb out of the car before being airlifted to hospital, where he was treated for burns mostly to his legs. Luckily, there was no serious injuries. Despite the drama at Sonoma, Corvette number 3 in the hands of Ron Fellows and Johnny O'Connell won the event, along with 5 others that year, losing the remaining 3 to the other Corvette of Olivier Beretta and Oliver Gavin. Corvette racing swept the whole season, handing them a 4th ALMS championship victory in a row. They also returned to the top of the GTS standings at Le Mans too, with both Corvettes beating ProDrive. 2004 was the final year of Corvette racing's time with the C5R, as from 2005 its C6 replacement would take its place. However, the C5R would continue racing for years in the hands of privateers who would see some success in smaller and regional championships long after the car's ALMS heyday. The C5R cemented and reinforced the racing legacy of the Corvette nameplate, lending the road cars a coveted racing pedigree to give prospective owners a new way to justify their extravagant purchase. But more than that, the C5R and the Viper GTSR that came before it proved to a global audience that there was more to American supercars than noise and straight-line speed. Speaking of, you should check out my video about the Viper GTSR here. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, tap the like button, and until next time, goodbye.